There are moments in life when the smallest actions carry the deepest meaning. A grain of salt, a simple bay leaf, objects so ordinary that many pass by them without a second thought. Yet sometimes what appears small can quietly shape the energy of a home, the feeling of a heart, and the direction of a life. As the month of April comes to its final breath, the energy of transition becomes very strong. The ending of one month is never just a date on a calendar, it is a doorway. One cycle closes and another begins. And before stepping through that doorway, wise people have always understood the importance of clearing what should not be carried forward. Salt has long been seen as a silent absorber. It does not speak, yet it gathers heaviness. It can hold tension that has settled in corners of a room, arguments that were never fully released, and worries that have quietly rested in the mind. Bay leaves have been known as symbols of intention. They are often used to hold prayers, wishes, and hopes for abundance. But when these two sacred items remain exposed at the wrong time, they can continue holding old energy instead of allowing fresh energy to enter. This is why the days before April 30th are considered important. Before the month ends, salt and bay leaves that have been used spiritually should be hidden away or respectfully removed. Not because they are bad, but because they may still be carrying what belongs to the old month. If left uncovered, they can anchor stagnant energy into the new cycle. Think of your life like a river. Water must keep moving to stay pure. When old water is trapped, it becomes still. In the same way, energy must be allowed to move. Old burdens must not be invited into a new beginning. To hide salt and bay leaves before the month ends is a symbolic act. It is a quiet way of saying what no longer serves me will not follow me. What belongs to yesterday will not enter tomorrow. Place them in a small cloth inside a drawer, or remove them from the space with gratitude. Do it gently. Do it with awareness. Do it not from fear, but from understanding, because peace often comes not from grand gestures, but from small mindful acts repeated with intention. And sometimes before a new month can bless your home, you must first show that you are ready to let the old one go. April 30th marks an energetic transition. The end of April is described as a powerful moment when one life cycle closes and a new one begins. April 30th is not simply another date passing quietly on a calendar. To many people, the final day of a month carries a subtle meaning that often goes unnoticed in daily life. It represents the closing of one chapter and the silent opening of another. Even though the world may appear the same on the surface, there is often a deeper sense that something is shifting beneath ordinary routines. The end of April can feel like a threshold, a space between what has already happened and what has not yet begun. This is why some people believe that the final days of a month should be treated with awareness rather than carelessness. Every month carries its own emotional weight. During those 30 days, people experience worry, hope, frustration, joy, disappointment, and change. Some moments are remembered, while others remain hidden in the body and mind. Even when a person believes they have moved on from a difficult experience, traces of that energy can remain. A harsh conversation, a painful memory, or a lingering fear can settle into the atmosphere of a home and into the quiet corners of the heart. Over time, these invisible impressions can begin to shape how a person feels without them fully understanding why. The final day of April can be seen as a natural pause, a moment when life offers an opportunity to release what has been collected. Just as trees let go of leaves in one season to prepare for another, human beings also need moments of intentional release. Without that release, old emotions can quietly follow a person into a new month. What should have ended can continue influencing thoughts, decisions, and feelings long after its time has passed. The transition from April into May becomes more than a change of dates. It becomes a chance to decide whether a person will carry old burdens forward or set them down before stepping into something new. This idea is not about superstition alone. It reflects a deeper truth about the way people live. Many carry the past without realizing it. They enter a new season while still holding the pain of the previous one. They seek fresh blessings while their hands remain full of yesterday's weight. The symbolic meaning of April 30th reminds a person that endings deserve attention. A proper ending creates space for a healthier beginning. When something is consciously released, the mind often feels lighter and the heart becomes more open. The energy of transition is powerful because it reflects the constant movement of life itself. Nothing remains still forever. Days change into nights, seasons move into one another, and people themselves are always changing in ways they cannot fully see. The end of April serves as a reminder that transformation often happens quietly. It does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it arrives in silence, asking only for awareness. To recognize April 30th as a meaningful transition is to understand that every ending contains the seed of a beginning. It invites a person to slow down for a moment and ask what should remain behind. In doing so, the final day of the month becomes more than an ending. It becomes a doorway, and how one steps through that doorway can shape the energy of the days to come. Salt absorbs old energy. Salt symbolizes the collection of negativity, stress, and emotional heaviness from the surrounding space. Salt and bay leaves have long been treated as simple household items. Yet in many traditions they are also seen as symbols that carry deeper meaning. Salt is often associated with purification, preservation, and absorption. It is believed to quietly take in the atmosphere around it, including emotional tension and unseen heaviness that may settle in a space over time. Bay leaves, on the other hand, are commonly linked with intention, focus, and the setting of personal desires. People have used them in different ways to represent wishes for growth, protection, and success. When these two elements are considered together, they represent a balance between release and intention, between clearing away what is unwanted and making space for what is desired. As the end of April approaches, some people become more mindful of the objects and symbols they keep in their surroundings. This awareness is not about fear, but about timing and transition. The idea is that when a month is coming to a close, especially one that may have carried emotional weight or challenges, it is helpful to also allow objects that have been used for symbolic or energetic purposes to be refreshed or respectfully set aside. Salt that has been exposed in open spaces or used in small rituals of cleansing is thought to gradually lose its freshness and begin holding the energy it has absorbed. Similarly, bay leaves that were once placed with clear intentions may no longer reflect the present state of a person's life once time has moved forward. The practice of hiding or removing these items before April 30th is often understood as a way of preventing old energy from blending into a new beginning. The transition between months is seen as a natural reset point. Just as people clean their homes to remove physical dust, there is also a symbolic idea of clearing emotional or energetic residue. If salt is left exposed without intention, it is believed to continue holding on to the past atmosphere of the room. If bay leaves remain unchanged, they may continue reflecting old wishes that no longer match a person's current direction in life. In this way, the act of respectfully storing or discarding them becomes a sign of awareness rather than superstition. This approach also reflects a broader understanding of personal growth. Life moves in cycles, and each cycle brings different experiences. Some experiences are light and joyful, while others are heavy and challenging. When a cycle ends, it is natural for a person to reflect on what has been learned and what should be left behind. Holding on to symbolic objects from the past without renewal can sometimes represent holding on to emotional patterns that are no longer useful. By consciously setting them aside before a new month begins, a person creates both physical and mental space for new experiences. The deeper meaning behind this practice is not about the objects themselves, but about the mindset they represent. Salt and bay leaves become reminders of awareness, timing, and intentional living. The idea is to remain conscious of what is carried forward and what is released. When this awareness is applied, even simple actions like clearing a shelf or storing a small item can feel meaningful. In the transition before April ends, this symbolic act becomes a gentle reminder that renewal is always possible, and that every ending holds the quiet promise of a new beginning. Bay leaves hold intentions. Bay leaves represent prayers, wishes, and abundance, but can also retain past energy if left exposed too long. When people ignore transitions in life, they often feel the effects in subtle and confusing ways. Nothing dramatic may happen at first, but gradually there can be a sense of heaviness that is difficult to explain. Thoughts may feel scattered, sleep may feel less restful, and the mind may carry a background noise of unfinished emotions. In many traditional belief systems, these experiences are not always seen as random. Instead, they are viewed as signs that something from the past has not been fully released. The idea connected with salt and bay leaves is part of this broader understanding of how small things in the environment can reflect inner states. Salt, when used symbolically in a home, is believed to collect more than just physical moisture or dust. It is thought to absorb emotional residue as well. Over time, conversations that carried tension, moments of stress, or silent worries can be reflected in the way a space feels. Even if a person cleans their home regularly, there is a belief that certain subtle impressions remain unless they are consciously acknowledged. When salt is left exposed for long periods, especially beyond a full cycle like the end of a month, it is considered to be full. This does not mean it becomes harmful in a physical sense, but symbolically it is seen as no longer able to serve its original purpose of purification. Keeping it beyond its cycle is believed to symbolically extend old energy into a new beginning. Bay leaves carry a different but connected meaning. They are often associated with intention, focus, and the shaping of desires. When someone places a bay leaf with a wish or a goal in mind, it represents clarity of direction. However, as time passes, human intentions naturally change. What felt important in one month may not hold the same meaning in the next. If bay leaves used for intention setting are not refreshed or respectfully stored before a new cycle begins, they are believed to continue symbolizing an outdated version of that desire. This creates a subtle mismatch between a person's present life and the symbolic energy they are keeping around them. The practice of hiding or removing salt and bay leaves before April 30th is therefore seen as an act of alignment. It is not about fear of what happens if it is not done, but about awareness of timing. Just as nature moves through cycles without resistance, human life is also understood to benefit from conscious transitions. When old symbols are left unchanged, it is like writing new words on top of an old page without turning it. The message becomes unclear, and the direction of energy becomes less focused. By contrast, when these items are respectfully set aside, it represents closure. Closure is important because it allows the mind to reset. Without closure, people often find themselves emotionally repeating past experiences even when the external situation has changed. The act of clearing or hiding these symbolic objects becomes a physical reminder that something has ended and does not need to be carried forward. In this way, the practice is less about the objects themselves and more about the discipline of renewal. It encourages awareness of cycles, respect for endings, and readiness for beginnings. When a person consciously acknowledges the end of a month in this way, they are also practicing letting go in a broader sense. And in letting go, space is created for clarity, simplicity, and a quieter mind as a new cycle begins. Hidden items prevent stagnant energy covering, or removing salt and bay leaves before month end helps stop old energy from entering the new month. When people talk about hidden practices connected to the end of a month, what they are often really pointing toward is the human need for closure and renewal. Life does not move in a straight line, it moves in cycles, and each cycle carries its own emotional weight. The end of April, like the end of any month, can be seen as a natural point where reflection becomes important. It is a moment when the mind, whether consciously or not, begins to review what has happened. Some experiences are released easily, while others quietly remain in the background, shaping how a person feels without them fully realizing it. Within this framework, salt and bay leaves are used as symbolic tools to represent inner processes. Salt is often connected with cleansing and absorption. In many traditional views, it is believed to take in the energy of its surroundings. While this is not something measurable in a scientific sense, symbolically it reflects how environments can hold emotional memory. A home where stress, conflict, or worry has been experienced often feels different from a home filled with calm and understanding. The idea is that salt, when placed in such spaces, represents the act of absorbing and containing that emotional atmosphere. Over time, however, it is understood that even symbolic tools have a cycle. When that cycle is complete, the salt is considered used in an energetic sense, meaning it has already fulfilled its purpose of gathering and holding. Bay leaves represent something different. They are often associated with direction, intention, and clarity of purpose. People may write wishes, goals, or prayers and connect them with bay leaves as a way of focusing their thoughts. This act is less about the leaf itself and more about the human mind organizing its desires into something tangible. However, human intention is not fixed. What feels important in one stage of life may shift in another. As time moves forward, old intentions can become outdated or irrelevant. If bay leaves remain in place without renewal, they can symbolically represent past versions of a person's goals rather than their present reality. The practice of hiding or respectfully setting aside salt and bay leaves before April 30th is rooted in this understanding of cycles. It reflects the idea that endings should be acknowledged rather than ignored. When something reaches the end of its symbolic use, keeping it in the same visible state is thought to blur the boundary between what was and what is becoming. In contrast, when these items are stored away, it represents a clear separation between cycles. This separation is important because it creates mental clarity. Without separation, the mind may continue to process old experiences as if they are still active in the present. On a deeper level, this practice is about mental discipline. Human beings naturally accumulate emotional experiences, and without conscious release, those experiences can overlap with new ones. This overlap can create confusion, fatigue, or a sense of being stuck. By choosing to symbolically clear space before a new month begins, a person reinforces the idea that life is forward-moving. Nothing is meant to remain permanently active in the mind or environment. Ultimately, salt and bay leaves are not powerful on their own. Their meaning comes from what they represent: awareness, intention, and release. The end of April becomes a reminder that renewal is always possible, but it requires participation. Letting go of symbolic remnants of the past is one way of aligning with that renewal. In doing so, the transition into a new month becomes not just a change in date, but a quiet opportunity to begin again with a lighter and clearer sense of being. Small rituals create inner change. Simple mindful actions can help create peace, clarity, and readiness for new blessings. When people reflect on the idea of endings and beginnings, they often discover that the most important changes are not always visible on the surface. Life is filled with subtle transitions that do not announce themselves loudly. The turning of a month is one of these quiet transitions. April moving into May is not only a change in time, but also a symbolic reminder that every phase of life carries its own emotional atmosphere. Within this perspective, practices involving salt and bay leaves are understood as symbolic ways of recognizing those unseen shifts. Salt has long been associated with purification in many cultural traditions. Beyond its physical uses, it is often seen as something that represents cleansing on a deeper level. Symbolically, it is believed to gather and hold what is no longer needed. This includes emotional residue such as stress, arguments, worries, and silent tensions that may accumulate in a living space over time. Even when a home appears clean, the emotional memory of experiences can linger in subtle ways. Salt, in this context, becomes a representation of that unseen collection. However, just as any container eventually becomes full, the idea is that salt used for symbolic cleansing also reaches a point where it should no longer remain in active use. When it is kept beyond its purpose, it is thought to continue holding on to the past rather than supporting renewal. Bay leaves carry a different symbolic meaning. They are often connected with intention, focus, and personal direction. When people use bay leaves in reflective or ritual practices, they are usually expressing hopes, goals, or desires. Writing or holding an intention through a bay leaf can be seen as a way of giving form to inner thoughts. It helps the mind concentrate on what it wants to achieve or attract. However, human intentions are not fixed in time. They evolve as experiences change. What once felt important may gradually lose relevance as a person grows or shifts direction. Because of this natural evolution, symbolic objects tied to old intentions can begin to represent a past version of the self rather than the present one. The idea of hiding or respectfully removing salt and bay leaves before April 30th is connected to this understanding of change. It is not about fear or strict rules, but about awareness of cycles. Every cycle has a beginning, a middle, and an end. When a cycle ends, it creates an opportunity for reset. If old symbolic objects remain unchanged and visible, they are believed to blur the boundary between what has ended and what is beginning. This can create a sense of emotional overlap where past energies feel unresolved and continue influencing the present moment. By contrast, when these items are set aside, it symbolizes completion. Completion is important because it allows mental and emotional space to open. Without completion, the mind can unconsciously hold on to unfinished experiences. This can lead to a feeling of stagnation even when life is moving forward externally. The act of clearing or hiding symbolic objects becomes a way of reinforcing internal clarity. It sends a quiet message that what belonged to the previous cycle has been acknowledged and is no longer active in the same way. In essence, salt and bay leaves are not powerful on their own. Their meaning comes from human awareness and intention. They act as reminders that life is made up of phases and each phase deserves recognition. The end of April becomes a moment to pause and observe what is still being carried emotionally or mentally. By choosing to release symbolic attachments tied to the past cycle, a person creates space for new experiences to enter with less resistance. This practice reflects a deeper truth. Renewal is not something that happens automatically, but something that becomes possible when space is intentionally made for it.